Are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. And so excited to be able to talk to you today, particularly for this film. And I know the way that Neil shot it is just so unique and so interesting. But how challenging was it for you, I'm wondering, to swap film sets and extras for, shooting scenes on a plane and in a market surrounded by real people who, didn't know you were making a film?
I mean, what's not to love? That all of what you've mentioned made it easier. You know, um, I mean, there were very different difficulties, but on the whole, we all found it, and I can speak for Phoebe. That it was just thrilling. To be doing something that everything we did in public, and a lot of this film, as you know, is shot in kind of very populated public places. It felt mischievous. It felt like we were doing something a little bit wrong, and of course, added to that, Phoebe and I got to work with the greatest actors on the planet. And the greatest actors on the planet are members of the public who don't know they're in a film. Um, that's just the best acting ever. And it was just great to be around that energy and to shoot a scene, to have to quietly say action, um, and not make a big pomp and ceremony of, yes, we're making a movie. You will all be quiet and you will all pay attention. It wasn't. We had to kind of covertly slip these scenes in the hope that no one interrupted us. I mean, and if they did, we would, you know, um, use it, in the scene. So it felt a little bit like live theatre, live street theatre, certainly. Um, so I found that endlessly fun and exciting.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's the end result as well is so fantastic. And I think Sam, he's such a interesting and very mysterious, I guess morally dubious kind of guy. So did you and Neil talk a lot about his backstory to figure out who he was, or did that really come to you as you were shooting the film?
Well, it kind of, I mean, what occurred to me is often, so often I think the truth is with anyone who becomes a spy is that rarely does anyone go to school or university, unless maybe it's Oxford or Cambridge, where they say, when I grow up, I'm going to be a spy. You know, most people fall into this world of espionage and for whatever reason they fall into it and find it difficult to get out of, or they have to do it to repay a debt or whatever. And I think that's what happens with Sam. He finds himself deeper and deeper and deeper embroiled in this. He works for the State Department, and then things as things take over. I think what was interesting to me is at which point, when this happens to someone, I just find it very interesting that you're doing a job and you can't even tell the people you love that you're doing it. So morally, before you even do anything, you're corrupted because you come home every night with a huge secret. And of course, we all know that is the leads to the rack and ruin of any loving relationship or setup, and we see it in extremis here, and I feel it was interesting to me that someone like him could have got so far down the line to be so, without giving too much away. But yeah, so it's an allegory on about lying in a way. There is no happy ending to that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the relationship, and of course, that father-daughter relationship is so pivotal to this film. And I think the movie really hinges on what you and Phoebe do together. So, what did you enjoy about collaborating with her and figuring out what the dynamic was between these two estranged, parent and child?
Well, I mean, she's like him. They're very similar, um, which is a worry. First of all, Phoebe is exquisite to work with, and just playful and generous and real and genuine. And, if any of us, but Phoebe particularly, totally got on board with this process and embraced it. and as soon as she did, everyone else did, you know, and it made it just a joy to be. But what I found interesting was to play was, you know, spies convince themselves of their own story. They do what actors do. They convince themselves that something is right. So I was interested that Sam coming back into her life and getting her on board. I think that genuinely he wants to engage with her again, you know. He wants to have her back in his life, and things go astray. So I just wanted to play with that conflict. I didn't want to play someone who was just so kind of instantly Machiavellian. I wanted someone who thought that, who's kind of optimistic in his moral corruption. You know, in the midst of all that, there's a part of him that thinks this will be okay. You know what I mean? That he's not manipulative. He's just neglectful of the moral facts of life. You know, somehow. You know, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rhys, such a pleasure talking to you. As a huge Spider-Man fan, as you can probably see, I'm
Where are you
massive.
from?
I'm from South Wales,
Yes, I
Abergavenny.
know. I can hear it. Whereabouts?
Abergavenny.
Oh, well, nice to talk to you. Nice to talk to a Welsh boy.
Yeah, and always good to catch up with a fellow Welshman. As I said, as a big Spider-Man fan, I love what you did with the Lizard, and I followed your career and a huge fan of what you've done. And I love seeing what you brought to this one as well. So thank you so much, Rhys, for taking the time
Oh,
today.
thank you for your time. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Lovely meeting you. Thanks again.
Ta-ra, bud. Ta-ra.
Cheers.